Hi, I'm Sandro from Massullo Music, and today I'm going to walk you through the proper procedure for cleaning a trumpet. Starting off, this is your basic trumpet and lacquer, and you should have your basic care and maintenance kit by now. If you haven't, you visit your local music store or visit Massullo Music. We put a nice kit together for you. First of all, you should have a mouthpiece brush, you should have a trumpet snake, you should have a polishing cloth, valve oil, of course, tuning slide grease, and that's the basics to get you going. And I'll walk you through each one and their uses and what we need to do with them. First of all, polishing cloth. This is something you should get in the habit now that you're young, you're starting off. You want to make sure you get those fingerprints off the instrument. Not so much to keep it looking shiny, but we have a lot of acidity in our hands, and if you don't get those fingerprints off, over time it could damage the lacquer on the instrument, and a lot of times it can take the lacquer right off. So when you finish playing, just simply wipe it down, get those fingerprints off, and you're ready to go for the next time. On a weekly basis, you should be cleaning your mouthpiece, and in order to do that, simple lukewarm water, liquid hand soap, just run it underneath the tap. And you can run your mouthpiece brush through both ends as far as it'll go, and then rinse it all off. You want to make sure you get any calcium deposits or any fluid particles that have enlarged themselves in the mouthpiece out of there, so that it doesn't travel on throughout the rest of the instrument. Okay, so starting off, disassembly of the trumpet. You have to remember, one thing to remember is that the valves are numbered, and they're numbered 1, 2, and 3, closest to you in playing position. And each number, when you start pulling them apart, actually each valve, when you start pulling it apart, will have a number that you'll be able to identify. So simply unscrew the top cap, pull the valve out, and if you'll see right there that there is a little number, and again, it's facing you. So pull the valve right out, lay it on a soft cloth. That's number 1. Pulley out number 2. Pulley out number 3. Now that we've got the valves out, we're going to work on the bottom caps as well. These unscrew again. Okay, moving along, we've pulled our bottom caps off. Now we're going to proceed with the slides. Just pull our main slide out. Lay that down. Our second slide, pull that down. Sometimes when you pull that second slide, you've got to give it a little wiggle. Just give it a little wiggle before you pulls out. If at any time you have trouble removing these slides, contact the shop or your local repairman and have it removed rather than trying to force it out. Pull your first slide out. Now the third slide, sometimes they have a lock in the slide so it prevents it from falling out. In this case it's a little screw. We have to back that off. In fact, I like to pull them off completely, lay it down on the table, and then you can easily pull the slide off. Okay, at this point the trumpet's completely disassembled, it's ready to go in the bath. And what we recommend at this point is just to soak it in even a bathtub, or if you have a deep tub basin available at home. Now here's a trick. Remember, the water should be no warmer than lukewarm. Any warmer than that, and you can actually ruin the protective finish on the trumpet, the lacquer that's on there. So lukewarm at best. Again, liquid hand soap is great. So get a little bath going. You can immerse the trumpet in the bath. Do the same thing with the slides. What I usually like to do before I put the slides in, just give them a little wipe with an old rag. Get any of the old grease off. Okay, at this point, you're ready to immerse the slides and the trumpet in the bath. Usually, I don't worry about the valves. The valves, you have to be careful because there's 2 sets of felts. There's a felt on what we call the stem, and there's a felt on top of the top cap. And these felts regulate the distance the valve travels inside the casing. So it's important not to get any oil or water on these felts, otherwise they can swell up and they can change the alignment of the ports to the casing in the valve. So usually I just put the valves aside unless they're really dirty, and at that point you should really be talking about getting it in to be professionally cleaned by a proper shop. Alright, so your trumpet and your slides have now soaked in the bath for a little while, and it's time to make sure that we get all that grime out of the trumpet. That's where our snake comes in. So we're going to start off with the lead pipe. So pull it out of the bath, run the snake through the lead pipe, pull it back out, and then proceed to do the same thing with through all the other slides. The one thing you have to be careful with when you do push the snake through these slides is that you don't go too far into the casing. As soon as you start to see the bristles come out on the casing, stop. Because there is the chance that you could get the snake stuck inside the valve casings. It could cause a lot of damage. So just go in just as far as you start to see the bristles and stop. So once you've done that to all the slides, you can give it another little swoosh around in the water, and then you want to rinse all the soap and everything, all the grime off the trumpet. Once that's done, then you can pat down the instrument drying. You want to do the same thing with all the slides. Each slide, main tuning slide you can push right through to the other end. The other ones you can't usually. Once all that's done, again rinse off your slides and dry them all off, and then you're ready for assembly. Putting it back together, for the slides, I like to use a product called Summer Tuning Slide Grease, and you don't need much of this. What I like to do, put one drop on either slide, and then just work each slide in individually. And then place it back in the trumpet. So that's your main tuning slide. Do the same thing with all the rest of the slides. Okay. Now I've taken care of the first two slides that always use the Sandro tuning slide grease. If you're a beginning player and you're not using your third and your first slide for tuning at this point, I would recommend just going ahead with the thick grease. If you're an advanced player and you need that third slide and your first slide to be quick, then we can combine it with either a little bit of grease and oil, or we have some special first and third slide oil at the shop that we sell that make it really quickly, assuming that the slides are lined up properly. So in this case, we're just going to use the thick grease. And we got one more slide, and that's the first slide. Okay, at this point, we're going to put the valves back in. Again, important that we don't get the top portion of the valve wet. So what I like to do is just put oil on what we refer to as the piston portion of the valve. So a little bit of oil on that. Look at the number. This happens to be number 1. And that goes into the number 1 casing, again being closest to us in playing position. So drop it down so that the number is facing us. And this is a little tip that you should all be aware of. When you drop that valve in, drop it in and then slightly turn that valve until you hear a click. then you know that the guide is actually locked into its channel. Once that's locked in, then you can turn the top cap clockwise. Never force these caps on. If they don't go on the first time, give it a little turn counterclockwise and then try again. You don't want to cross thread these things. Okay, we do that with all 3 valves. Okay, now that we have the 3rd valve in, now we can proceed with the bottom caps. Again, try not to cross thread them. If they don't go on easily the first time, give them a little turn, quarter turn backwards. They usually find their sweet spot and then they'll go. Okay, now that we've got it all together, we need to give it a quick test blow. In fact, you just blow some air through the instrument. If it's free sounding, everything is lined up. If there's no sound at all, it could be that you have one of the 3 valves in the wrong corresponding casing, or sometimes we have the valve spun around 180 degrees in the wrong direction, and that means that the ports don't line up. So you have to just do a quick search if it's not blowing. And that's basically it for your first cleaning on your trumpet.